Hello, everyone. We are online and welcome back to the Fuel Arts online webinar Art and Tech series. Today is an important day for Art and Tech. We're celebrating the 5th anniversary of CryptoPunks, one of the most successful NFT series so far. And back in 2017, only a few people heard of digital assets, and today's NFTs were known as blockchain art. But at the same time, in the physical art world, it was all about auction databases. People were crazy of the numbers, and the artist's pricing was based on the traction of sales mostly. That's how people thought. But the pandemic has changed the rules. So thanks to pandemic, if we can say that, we got the rise of the NFT market. But interesting that neither CryptoPunks nor CryptoKitties became the symbol of a freedom from COVID. That were traditional artists, Coase with his companion sculptures, Rashid Johnson with his Zoom background pictures and playlists from iPhone, and David Hockney with his iPad sketches. So in other words, the artists who have remained active during the pandemic, and activity is not based on auction sales. Activity is based on academic recognition, starting from education, biennale, residence attractions, and of course exhibitions. And at the time I heard an expression of our today's guest that the art history is the exhibition history. So that's why the attention scope of the market has shifted from auction databases like ArtNet and ArtPrice towards ArtFacts, because in the very end, the sale prices of the artists are determined by the story behind those artists, and the story is based on exhibitions. So I'm very happy to welcome today a leading figure in art world data, Marek Klassen, the co-founder of ArtFacts and AI-powered art advisory app, Limna. Hello, Marek.
Hello, Dennis, and hello, Sonia. I'm very pleased to be invited at your prestigious webinar for art and technology. I really like your mission that you want to help outsiders of the art world and the art and technology ecosystem to gain confidence. And confidence is something what we try to establish since 20 years or maybe even longer. And to make it more inclusive, I would say, and not so exclusive, the art world, so that everybody can participate. And thanks for inviting me, both of you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Marek, for appreciating our request to having you as one of our guests. We know that prior to Fuel Arts webinar, you've been spoken at a number of key institutions, including the Art+Tech podcast and talking galleries, Christie's Education, and InSeed. Today, we're going to discuss the path from ArtFacts to Limna and the role of artificial intelligence for the art advisory and factors behind the value of NFT artists, if there are any, of course. Yes, and my traditional co-host is Sonia Stubble-Bine, the project manager of Fuel Arts. So my first question towards you, Marek, will be, prior to Limna, you created ArtFacts, a unique portal for artists' academic activity. So that was back in 2001. So for a long time, you've been collecting this information virtually by hand. And now ArtFacts became the #1 platform in the art market during pandemic. So what are the main driving factors behind your successful ArtFacts project, as you see it?
Yeah, I would say it wasn't successful in the beginning, right? So everybody thought that we are kind of crazy what we are doing. And I remember speaking with Hans Neuendorf, the founder of ArtNet, 25 years ago, and he was saying, Marek, you look after the crumbs. Whereas, everybody who is below top 10,000 artists is not interesting. And I didn't think so. I thought that art history is actually exhibition history. So it is, so the study of exhibition provides a fascinating route into art history. And so by analyzing art exhibition, you can learn a lot about an artist network, where an artist is located, not only geographically, but also professionally. So I thought that this is a part of the art world that is really not considered by the professionals back in the days. They started with auction prices. And it is also obvious because prices is a transparent system in the auctions. You know the price, and with the price you already have a number. But with an exhibition, you don't have a number. You just have a qualitative event where people meet, and to make a number out of an exhibition was something that outraged many people over many years. So at the beginning, when we launched the ranking, we had actually a hard time defending what we are doing. But over the years, and especially over the recent years, and also thanks to blockchain technology, NFTs, the digitalization of the art market has been accepted more or less. Yeah, it's not really there. I think we still have to go a few years until it will be appreciated fully, but the appreciation is much higher. Also through the pressure of outside people coming into the art market, that the connoisseurship, as we have known this back in the 80s, is mostly gone. People need facts. They need a quick check on an artist to have some kind of idea. And you can't read a novel anymore. Nobody has really the time to read. So they become handy, right? And so, and this is basically, you mentioned it that we did this literally by hand, and this is true. We have collected around 1 million exhibitions, and each exhibition has a timestamp and a source stamp inherent in it. So because we had an academic approach at the beginning, right? The database should have withstand an academic scrutiny, an audit, to be used in this kind of environment. This was always our aim, and therefore we implemented this from the very beginning. And this also came in handy later when the ranking became more and more known. People also tried to play the ranking, gave us information what wasn't maybe true, or what was, let's say, altered in a way that you would consider it questionable. And because we then relatively ruthlessly asked for a source, if you want a receipt, so they needed to send us a scan of the original catalog when it was a pre-internet time exhibition, or they need to send us a link. So sometimes we went into correspondence with the curators to make sure in which part. For example, the Venice Biennale is such a subject where you have lots of side shows, where in the past artists said, I was at the Venice Biennale. And of course, there have been in Venice shown during the Biennale, but it was actually a vanity show. The Palazzo, this was rented or so. And these things that nobody really cared about that, and an artist CV was self-written. But thanks to our activities, this changes now, that people actually, if they have been in Venice on the ArtFacts platform, they really have been in Venice at the Biennale and scheduled by curators. So, yeah.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you. I was more curious as well, like if we are shifting from like ArtFacts to Limna, how do you see Limna? Do you see Limna as this startup, this project that uses already existing database and clients, or do you see it as some sort of like strategic development of ArtFacts?
Limna has has a different name, and it's presented on a different device, not in a web environment. It's on an iPhone. And with Limna, we wanted to address the art lover at the point of decision making. So, for example, at the art fair, at the gallery, right where the art is located. This is why we called Limna the digital art advisor in your pocket, right? So this was for us very important, and the audience is also very different. So everybody should be enabled to make knowledgeable decisions. And Limna shouldn't be a research tool like ArtFacts. So ArtFacts is more addressed to the art professionals which have some kind of idea. And we have this ranking system, you mentioned it, I mentioned it, and it's an intellectual step between a figure and a ranking, let's say ranking 20,000, and to bring this in your head into correlation to all artists. So we overcome this step by bringing up an estimation, actually in a price, right? But every $20,000, everybody knows what that means. But a rank of 20,000, only people who know our system could deal with that, right? So ArtFacts, as I have said, was designed out of a scholarly desire to make the gallery market more transparent and comparable, whereas Limna is designed, of course, with a desire to help art lovers to purchase art with confidence. And this is why we thought the ranking is not a good way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Our webinar takes place just a week before the main event of the year, Art Basel Art Fair in Basel, Switzerland. So, Mark, could you please, using the example of a collector, let's say visiting Art Basel, present the Limna user case? In other words, how can a collector get the most out of visiting Art Basel with Limna?
Yeah, by speaking with galleries at Art Basel, pre-building Limna, right? They told me, and this was very interesting for me, that art collectors usually stop asking for the price after the third booth. I never conducted this questionnaire on a higher level, but this was something that stayed in my brain, because it's kind of intimidating, right? Or it can be, it doesn't have to be, but everybody has a budget. That was, I always lived under budget constraints all my life, and I think the majority of people do that. And so I can like art and I can go to a museum and appreciate art, but at an art fair, I actually want to buy art, right? So I want to be able to go there and purchase it, but there are no prices. The majority of galleries do not publish prices. So I have to go and ask, right? And the gallerist might throw prices at me, what I'm not, prepared to. And it can be that I then need to leave, even if I like the artwork. And normally a discussion on a booth is about the artwork, right? I approach the gallerist and ask about this artwork, and the gallerist will unveil the background story about how the artwork was done, tell me something about the artists. So I will be really, really interested, ask for my business card, and maybe also ask me other questions, like to get some kind of understanding where I am located in the art world, right? Maybe what else do you collect? Questions like that. This can be difficult for me as an maybe not an insider, right? As maybe somebody who stands outside of the art market, but is interested, wants to buy. So Limna want to help these people to have some kind of idea about the artist. We have this quadrant chart, and we have short text about the artist, so you can quickly, even just visually, see where the artist is kind of stands within the operating system art world, and we give you an estimation. So you can then go in and know the prices out of your budget, and can go in out of curiosity and maybe be prepared for us for something was cheaper, maybe work on paper or something what you might afford, or an edition, things like that. or you just pass by and don't steal the time of the gallerists if you want, because they need to sell, right? And it makes it easier for you. So this was actually one of the main reasons why we wanted to have it as an art advisor in your pocket, right? It's this is the scenario we envision of users on art fairs. So I hope I have
it's interesting.
yeah.
Sonia?
Yeah, sorry, maybe
Yeah.
a bit late. Yes, here. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did
So
I answer your question sufficiently, or do you want more?
I believe that the next questions of ours should provoke you to elaborate more on Limna and I mean in some specific cases. So we'll proceed with the questions, and that, let's say that user case was pretty cool. So we understood that well. That your message was very clear. I mean, for us as the art tech and VC people, and for the collectors, we believe as well.
absolutely, it was clear, and I loved how you mentioned all these issues, all these problems that people face when they actually go to the fairs. And I heard so many times about how uncomfortable it is for so many people to get all this information and get through all these steps. I actually wanted to ask you about Limna's slogan, like this AI-powered art advisor in your pocket. How did you come up with this brilliant slogan? Because it's like very precise, it's very short, and it actually really reflects what is Limna about.
Right, because it answers the three main questions. In short, what? Art advisory. Where? In your pocket. And by means of what? Let's say supported with what? With artificial intelligence. So you have the substance, you have the attitude, and you have the secret sauce, all in one phrase. That's why we consider that slogan to be brilliant. I mean, very short as an example.
Yes, I would be happy to take the credit. I don't actually know, this was just there, right? In the when we did the sprints, designing the app and building this thing, it was just there. So it wasn't really a process where we deliberately thought about these three main things this subtitle should have. We wanted just to build an app that is consumer facing, right? And is helping the gallerists. And maybe I didn't reflect enough in the former answer on the gallery side, because for the galleries who need to sell, it's also cool that they don't have all these passers-by who actually steal their time, right? So that they can't really focus on pitching to the people who have the budget to actually buy this artwork. So it should be consumer facing, but also give qualified leads to the gallerists. I think this is very important to know. It's not just, we just don't want to be disruptive to the gallerists. We think they're an integral part. And so that you take when you want to go to a fair, you take your iPhone with me. So this was obvious. And we wanted to help the art lover to engage in a discussion with the gallerists. To make a sovereign out of everybody. So technology should empower everybody, like it does, for example, with cars and so on. You know, it's all the cool tools are rolled out in the luxury segment, and if they are scaled, if it's easier to build them, then they dribble down into the consumer cars, economic cars, electric windows, air condition, all that. So it's the same thinking behind that, right? So the wealthy people can afford a consultant, an art advisor to build a great collection. A normal person can't do that. A normal person is exposed to the scenario, what I have presented by answering the other question, what can be intimidating, yeah. But as a wealthy art lover who wants to enter this world, you hire somebody who introduces you to the right people, who shields you away from intimidating questions. The budget is also discussed up front, so this is also shielded away from you. The art advisor won't show you stuff that you can't afford. or maybe shows you the stuff, but only for interesting purposes, but for pedagogic purposes, but not to actually to consider these things to buy. And so this is what we wanted to give everybody, and this is then organically this phrase, the art advisor in your pocket, or the digital AI-driven art advisor in your pocket, came kind of naturally. So, and we have confirmed that with research, and we had questionnaires out, and people answered. So, like around 80% say that this Limna can be integral to the buying process. So it's, in the end, we got a confirmation actually later. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Actually, I agree that nowadays the process of buying art at art fairs is like a hunt. So people are hunting for more valuable art for the last price. So the winner takes the most, let's say, the most valuable art for the smaller price. That's the goal, and your app should definitely help with it. But could you please tell us more about the role of artificial intelligence for Limna? How did you create it, and how does it operate today?
Yeah, so what we actually do is we apply machine learning, which is a subset of artificial intelligence. So we should actually call it the machine learning tool, but this sounds a little bit stupid. So it's artificial intelligence, and machine learning is part of it, so it's probably okay. So, and machine learning is broadly defined as a capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human being or intelligent human behavior. And so artificial intelligence systems are used to perform complex tasks in a way that is similar how a human being would solve this, right? How a human being would encounter this problem. In our case, choosing an artwork for your collection, what will be a heuristic endeavor. And so we also use a pattern set. So we train the computer to correlate a specific exhibition career pattern with the list price of a reputable gallery for a work of art by from an artist with a similar career pattern. So we actually train, recognize career patterns and train. We say, if you have a career pattern that looks like this artist, then you should be able to fetch this and this price for that and this size. This is what we train for. So we collected prices during COVID out of OVRs, basically, mainly. And now we collect mainly the prices from galleries, connecting with galleries directly, asking them to send them their prices to get kind of this ground transparency. And in the minute, we are just, trying to get an understanding about the price, the way prices are displayed in OVRs and the way galleries are pricing internally, or the price lists they're sending to us. This is what we are right now checking. So once the computer understood that artistic careers correlate with a price reflecting that career, we could just enter any artist's name into the system and get an estimation for our price. So nowadays, Limna is able to estimate a price for any given artist. So we have around 800,000 artists in the database, and Limna will somehow find their way around and gives an estimation. But the estimation does not have to be the actual price on the cent, right? It should give you an orientation in which is it more in thousands, 10,000s, hundreds of thousands, in the millions, tens of millions. Where is this artist located?
I have a small sub question before Sonia asks her one. Does your explanation mean that in the very beginning, the artist to be presented at Limna, the artist should either have some auction sales determined by ArtNet, or, and which is more important, to be listed at ArtFacts with his or her exhibitions?
Yeah, so actually to go a little bit deeper into how this, let's say, operating system art world works, is that you have a ground layer that is cultural recognition. This is the exhibition history of each artist. This is a kind of a base layer for everything. And above this, you have the social layer of the gallery. So if you are represented by a very famous gallery, you mentioned Gagosian, and you maybe all have heard about the story of, I think, a friend of Larry Gagosian, kind of young artist, painter, has fetched really, really high prices. We would probably without knowing that this artist is with Larry Gagosian, we would have probably predicted a lower price. But Larry Gagosian somehow overrides the exhibition history of an artist to a certain degree. So there's an influence there. So it's not only enough to know the exhibition career, the curatorial point of view. It's also important to know the social environment where the artist is presented with which gallery. And on top of that is another layer, that's the auction price layer. So if an artist, people, for example, have never shown an exhibition or maybe had one exhibition somewhere and fetches this extraordinary prices in auction, this will override even Larry Gagosian's name. Also, it's overwriting if the artist has had any exhibition ever before. So auction prices, in the end, they give a certain, definitive status. So this is why we have reached out to ArtNet. And this, in our case, it's a small number. It's around 500 artists, around the 800,000, where we actually correct with auction prices. Yeah, and it's a very, very small number. And we consider for 5,000 artists that where we are not sure, and then we compete the auction, what we would estimate for an auction price with the with our estimation. But for 500, we just actually use ArtNet's data to give a price. And there's also another problem with the auction price, especially from our point of view, because we wanted to support the gallery market. And this means that the artwork is fresh from the studio. So the Limna app always thinks that the artwork that you want, where you want an estimation from, is just done right now. Like if it's an Andy Warhol or Picasso, it would think Picasso is still alive and it was just been made, the artwork. This is why you don't have to enter a year. But in the secondary market, in the auction market, the year, the period is very, very important for the price, because certain artists have Cubist period, other periods from artists fetch different price levels there. And even within the period, you can see, for example, for Banksy, you can see huge spreads between the price, depending on the sujet, right? They can be done in the same time, and sujet and material. And so it's very difficult to predict auction prices. It's much easier to predict prices that are based on works directly from the studio. Yeah, so I don't know if I've answered your question sufficiently.
Yeah, I'm fully satisfied.
Absolutely.
I believe the audience as well. We have a lot of great responses, positive responses, but I will read them a bit later.
Yeah, and we do have additional questions from the audience. We'll just go through them in the end of the session. I actually wanted to highlight that Limna combined the partnership of the two big companies, ArtFacts and ArtNet. And I wanted to ask you, was it difficult to incorporate the interests of these two companies into one startup? How would you describe, how was it?
We are not one startup. What we do is we swap data, but this was difficult enough, right? ArtNet is very, very protective of their data, and ArtFacts as well, because this has been such a tough time to build these, probably for ArtNet as well as for us, with blood, sweat, and tears, if you want, to build these databases. They are not just scrapes, right? These are artifacts No, ArtNet is built on a simple scrape. It is actually a quite ruthless audit that goes before anything gets entered into the database. And so ArtNet has done an audit on our data, right? So they didn't just accept working with us without checking what we're doing. And after they have been convinced about the quality, and I told you about that we have for each stamps for each entry. We know which editor did it. We know when it was. We know the source which he used, so we can always go back and see which source was used. And ArtNet works also with a very restrictive system for their data. This is why their data is so highly regarded. In data science, we say garbage in, garbage out. So if you just go and scrape the hell and get millions and millions of data sets and build then the machine on that, it will be difficult to come up with good results if you train with bad data. So the data quality is an essential part of anything that has anything to do with machine learning. So also what I would say is that I believe that in business it's mandatory to be fully transparent with your partners and also with the audience, like I'm with you, and to aspire for a win-win outcome. So for the parties involved. So both parties, it counts for us as well. I need to, perform here in this webinar. Otherwise, you won't invite me again or won't say that, please, Marek is a cool guy or he has something to say. So the same goes for if you want to have a partnership with either if it's an investor or if it's a data partnership like with ArtNet. And you have to be honest about your strengths and also weaknesses, right? I've used this word often, confidence, to gain confidence and open doors. I think this is what I've successfully done there. I visited Hans. I had lots of telephone, Hans Neundorf, the founder, lots of telephone conversation with the CEO, lots of discussions with other parties involved, with the data scientists of ArtNet and the marketing department. So it took us a while to have this done.
Thank you. So let's go deeper to the inner world of startups, uncovering some internal information of Limna, if you please. So according to to the public database Crunchbase, Limna had 2 rounds of investments. So back in 2020, the company raised $145,000, and a year later, a significant amount of 2.5 million. So my question is, what have you achieved with the first investment? I mean, from one milestone to another, that attracted the attention of a bigger investors? That's a very important questions for young startuppers who receive the first money, and then they have to prove their concept of the first money to get to the much bigger amount.
Yeah. So the first, as you said, the first investment was actually to prove if the prediction model works. So we also had angel investment before that is not mentioned in Crunchbase, what was also sufficient, but was regarding ArtFacts and keeping ArtFacts alive. So this is why it didn't play a role in the Limna Crunchbase publication. So I could prove that there is a correlation between cultural recognition and price on a statistical level. And with this in mind, our lead investor said, okay, when you are able to predict the prices of at least 2/3 of Frieze New York 2020 edition OVR prices, then we are going to invest, and then we can build something out of it. So I just had the proof in terms of a simple chart of the correlation between price and cultural success. And so we used that money to build a simple notebook, right? A simple algorithm that can actually predict 2/3. So that was the base. Yeah, it is. It was a. If you want, we could just show that we can build a machine that that's actually make it boop boop boop. But it's not really a Formula One racer. But it's the motor did work, and that was then enough to get in sufficient investment to hire a data scientist, a marketing guy, to build the team, CTO. All that came then later. And so the follow-up investment has been placed actually to build the app and to scale it. That was all. So there was, if you want, no real business plan behind it. The only thing was the idea, and then the proof with a little bit of money that we can actually make it real, and then bring it out and see if it's accepted by the audience, by the user. That was actually up to now the whole background of the investment rounds.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. And we would love to get closer to the numbers when we're talking about Limna. What is the number for today? How many people have downloaded Limna in their smartphones?
So you have cut it out. Did you ask how many people are working here, or what did you ask?
How many downloads are there for the Limna app?
Okay, sorry.
No,
We have over 100,000 downloads now. So we had a soft launch a year ago, and then actually at Art Basel last year, we presented it to journalists. So it was a hard launch, and since then we have had 100,000 downloads. I also wanted to give you exact figures about where geographically and so it comes from, but I closed WhatsApp because there were too much distraction. So it's US, I think, UK, France, Italy, Germany are the major countries of downloads and of usage. And then it spreads out over the world. So I can maybe after this, or I have to start WhatsApp again to look it up, but it's maybe sufficient enough for you. Or do you want exact numbers?
Yeah. I believe as soon as we started speaking about scaling, and you were the first, Mark, to use this word, scaling. So let's continue talking about scaling. Let's say, where do you see Limna in 2 or 5 years? Let's say, what are the next benchmarks for Limna 2-5 years?
So in terms of a business model, what we are still working on, but we are envisioning 3 million users within 4 years. I think this is doable. ArtNet has this traffic, Artsy has this traffic, they have even more traffic than that. So there should be room for a third player that has this many active users. So this is the goal in terms of usage. We are trying now to, as I said, that we are working with galleries. So we are approaching galleries, asking them to work with us, to give us price data, if they want also to publish artworks for sale in the app, what we have just started as a project. It's a beta. So, and the feedback is very good. So we are actually targeting now galleries and speaking with them and trying to get them on board. There was some skepticism at the beginning, right? How can you do this? But I think we break the ice by telling them that we will provide qualified leads. And this is what we are actually testing now with our, I think, 20,000 user base. How many leads will we generate? And are these actually qualified leads, like leads that end up in a real sale? And we also try to make it as easy as possible for the gallery. So they work with ArtNet, work with Artsy, work with Ocular, you name it, right? They are already, they have many platforms. where they provide their data. They find it quite handy that they don't have to give us a price, because we estimate a price. Some give us a price, so that we publish both our estimated price and the list price of the gallery. So I think that there is a great hope that this works out, and it's also interesting to see that the galleries are not that digitalized as I thought. Right? There are very, very few galleries who have actually an online marketplace who can actually facilitate a deal online. This is next to zero. So this is a problem for, I think, for the whole market, not only for us. I think it's the galleries really have to step up there, that they get their act together and digitalize at least their back end, right? So it wasn't possible for us until now to get an API connection that is somehow, except I must say, a König it worked there, but this is a real exception. The majority of galleries is not able to provide that. Maybe I think would think that Swirner would be able to do that. We haven't approached them yet. We will speak to them probably in the near future. But we thought we wait a little until we have a size that is, interesting enough for a gallery of that, magnitude. But this is actually the goal.
Thank you, Mark, and I'm happy to hear from you, because you've just circled out the main problem for galleries in terms of increasing their sales channels for the next years. I mean, the unification of their backend, which would allow such, let's say, agents as yours to work with them properly. And I really wish that in from 2 to 5 years, let's say, people coming to Art Basel or Frieze or the Armory show, whatever, they would not separate galleries, let's say, between blue chip galleries and the rest. They will think of the galleries like Limna supported galleries and the rest. So I wish it would happen.
Yes, but I think this is, there is, and this is because you mentioned NFT and you did a lot already webinars according to this subject, and I think I'm really thankful about what's happening there, because this really forces. So when I speak with younger people who want to open a gallery, this is already, in their mindset. They all work with NFTs and digitalization, and they won't have these problems. It's the established galleries that have to, or also the traditional galleries, that has nothing to do with being established or not, that have to. I think it's a kind of revolution that's going on in the art world, between the traditional approach that is where you read a lot and have a completely qualified approach. Everybody is a connoisseur, and you know the right people, and you're integrated part of this, into a kind of globalized market where what is inclusive, where everybody who has an interest in art can purchase it, and they are also. I would say that we are with Limna at the very beginning of this whole process of digitalizing the traditional art market. There's more to do. Subjects what we haven't spoken about: liquidity of the market, how to make it more liquid, and all these kinds of things we haven't touched here in this webinar. This is a huge story. What is problematic in my point of view, that you actually, when you buy an artwork, you have it forever. And it's 85% never show up on the market again. And actually, we did some research on NFTs where it was kind of similar. What I found striking, at least the art part of it, right? So the collectibles is maybe a little bit different, or the kitty cats and stuff, or the football, soccer game cards and stuff. But the art works in the blockchain are often not sold anymore, right? And it's interesting how the similarities of both markets. Yeah. So.
Talking about NFT market because you touched it, I wanted to know your perspective on it because we noticed that some of the NFT artists they have absolutely like unexpressive records regarding exhibitions. Like if we talk about people, he had two exhibitions before his like famous sales in Christie's for like $69 million. So if we talk about NFT artists, for example, like people or others, like what can be these factors that we can take into account? And do you plan to research these factors when we talk about NFT artists?
Yeah, but before answering your question directly, and what kind of factors would be used to estimate prices for NFTs, I would go back a little bit to the beginning of your question, saying like people and so fetched so high prices with just 2 shows. So on Wikipedia, there's a list of the artworks that are paintings that have fetched the highest prices, like Leonardo da Vinci's and Picasso's and all that, where you have hundreds of millions. You won't find a Gerhard Richter in this list. And Gerhard Richter is the I would say highest acclaimed, highest paid probably living artist, painter in the world. So he is not even showing up in this list. Yeah, and this is the highest ranked artist living that we have in our ArtFacts ranking system from a curatorial point of view. And so this says something about these markets, right? This is overlapping, and I come to that, but it's also different because it's private people, mostly, or big, huge funds that have a certain political interest or private interest in purchasing a painting, whereas a curator has a different interest. The curator want to teach, want to show art, want to show the development of art, the richness, and it doesn't really matter how much prices is even hindering, because if an artist is very expensive, it's difficult to make a show with this artist. You have to pay insurance and all that. So these worlds are not really comparable, first of all, right? Because there's different audiences constructing these rankings, if you want. You can, in terms of the NFTs and the rankings and the market, you can say that it's an outside movement that comes from programmers, Twitter, from this world, from the computer digital nerds. You have another outsider group, that's the street artist, that was a little bit earlier. They came, they had spray paint and were running around and spraying houses. Banksy, for example. So Banksy is not that high ranked in our system, but is showing up. There's a huge collector base, and you see the first museums for NFTs. So I would say that no matter what, it will be institutionalized. So there will be a process that the people who invest in Bored Apes, or you name it, or in street art, they build their own museums. If they are not ending up in official museums, they will build their own galleries, and they will have an institutionalized system, because the institutions is actually the arena where the artists are playing against each other. Yeah, and so the NFT artist will end up in kind of institutions, and if it's institutions in the second life, I wanted to say in the metaverse, right? Maybe there, but there will be an institutionalized ecosystem. This is what we measure. So it's a question of time, I would say. And another, I would say, good anecdote is the Salon de Refusés. You might have heard about it, 1863. It was allowed by Napoleon III as an grassroots exhibition of outsiders. All the 350 artists that have been exhibited in the salon have been refused by the academic world. So the mainstream world rejected these artists as punks, not crypto punks, but punks without crypto, right? So they were not allowed in. And but the Impressionists were be taken over by the American industrialists. So because the academic art was associated with the ruling class, with the aristocracy. Before that, it was the clergy system that ruled the art. So the civil class, the industrialists took over power, and they used the Impressionists to be their, if you want, icon, right? And so we will have these bored apes are icons for another class that is popping up right now. They will stay probably. But you also have to see that from these 350 artists, it's just a handful that is known. For example, Paul Cézanne, Edouard Manet, Camille Pissarro. They were all in their 20s back in the days, right? These are world famous. But over 90% of the artists that have been exhibited there, you don't know. Nobody knows. They're gone. They're forgotten in history. Right, the same will happen to NFT artists. There will be a few icons that will stand for that time and will be collected and will end up in some kind of institutionalized framework, even if it's a digital institutionalized framework, and the others will be just forgotten. Yeah, and this will be probably the same numbers. Yeah, and so it's difficult. So coming back to that, on the one hand, we are waiting what's happening. So if the artists are picked up by galleries, we will put this in. On the other hand, we are thinking about experimenting with other sources like Instagram for NFTs, probably Twitter, news, natural language processing, looking what is popping up where, and having some kind of meter of popularity and bringing this bringing this as a feature into the estimation process. But we are not there yet. It's too early. It's right. I would be happy enough if people buy art, original art, and have it on their walls. This is still something, but it's not left behind. But it's very difficult for us to. I would say for a company like ours, it's a little bit early. We have to see how. But I'm sure. This is what I can leave it with. That it will say they came to stay, like the Impressionists back in the day.
Yeah, we also support your point of view and your vision, especially on the necessity of merging the two worlds, the world of traditional art, the world of digital art, and in terms of both, let's say, the marketplaces and trade, and of course, academic recognition. And we see how a lot of art strategists are now trying to to discover the NFT world, like Sotheby's, Christie's, Phillips, and at the same time, such major players as the top online gallery, Van Contemporary, is also into NFTs. They have recently opened their department, their NFT department, and from the public source PageBook, we know that Van Contemporary, better say the corporation Van Fine Art, is also one of your key investors. So it's very easy to ask questions based on public information. But how would you define the approaches of a venture capital investor and an investor from the art world? Are there some differences? Let's say Peter Thiel and Rüdiger Weng.
Yeah, it's two words, I must say. It's but they go together, but it's polar oppositions between a venture capital investment and an investment from a businessman, I would say, from a traditional business. So our lead investor has a strong growth perspective for the business, whereas the art world investor is interested in a strategic integration of the business into its market activities. So I would say this is the basic difference. So when you get money from a venture capitalist, they throw money at a number of companies and grow. That was for me personally also very difficult at the beginning when we worked with our Silicon Valley investor. Like go, spend, and I was like, I'm not used to these figures, right? This is crazy, but there is something. It's a race, and you try to get the best people as quickly as possible, and you pivot, persevere. You just do empirically. You work on the you go forward, but you also burn a lot of money on this way. Right, you need a constant influx on money, and if this goes out, then you're gone. Whereas a investor like Wang is called a strategic investor because he has a strategic idea. He's invested in other companies. He has a certain idea about how he or his company wants to play the future. And we are kind of in like a jigsaw puzzle piece in that. And this is why he puts money in there. But there in the back, there are discussions always, right? What's the burn rate? One party wants a high burn rate, the other party wants a below burn rate, one party wants high marketing expenses, the other party wants low marketing expenses. And we have kind of, I would say, these two fractions in the ownership of the company. It's mostly like entrepreneurs against venture capitalists, but as different as both approaches are, they are equal in the desire to establish a successful product market fit for Limna. So this is, I would say, for both sides the goal, and where they then actually meet. And I would say that this friction is very fruitful. It's productive. You know, when you have friction, the heat comes up and engagement. And I must say, I enjoy that, right? Lots of people would say, Marek, are you crazy to have these both worlds in one company? But actually, this makes us more sustainable, right? Because we always have one leg in the let's say world where you have to make sales to survive, and then the other one where you just want to have a certain position in the market first before you think about sales. Yeah, so and these are these competing forces, which are actually very fruitful.
Thank you. Yeah, that was, brilliant explanation. We have several questions from our audience. At the same time, we are running out of time. So my question to you are you okay to stay for 5 more minutes, please?
Yeah. I'm here until you throw me out. It's fine. I'm always over. You know, I'm difficult for me to keep.
Thank you. So we have. It's so cool to listen professional with such a profound practical experience, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. So, question from nearly 800,000 artists validated by your app. You for sure got the situations when artists are not agree with some results presented there. What do you do in these cases?
Yeah, so everybody has a right, dear Anna, everybody has a right to be forgotten, right? So when somebody approaches us and is not happy about being listed in this, then we are delisted, right? So this is no question. And this has never been a question, because if somebody doesn't want to be presented in this manner, we don't do it. So this is as simple as it is. It's not many. So over the 20-something years, I do a number crunching on artists and measure artist careers. It has been maybe 80 at max that we delisted, right? And we had people like furious, and often it's an emotional thing that people say, you can't do that to me, but with some explanation and with filling up missing information, you mostly come to a conclusion, and people are happy to be in there. Yeah, and mostly the people think that they are misrepresented, what they often then are, because we miss certain information, and this is, of course, this is clear. But when you have 800,000 artists in there, there's always something missing. But when we take them serious, when we give them in ears, and it's actually same also for galleries. We also had galleries which were very disappointed, and when we then we had the case where when an artwork was returned because of the ranking. This was some years ago, and the gallerist was very furious, calling us, and then we said you need to do a better job, right? When you have an artist in your custody, you need to build the career. You need to make sure that the artist is exhibited, right? It's when you don't exhibit your artists, then they get forgotten, right? Nobody will know about them. So you have to invest some, and this gallerist then even stayed a client, right? Because he understood that this is a correct approach, but they haven't been used to be measured, right? That people actually from outside can measure this kind of success. And once you explain that, then it's often okay.
Thank you. So Eric Gonzalez from Mexico City says, great talk. I've been using the app for my gallery in Mexico City to work with international artists who have been building careers for many years. I would love to see how galleries from Latin America can adapt to this new paradigm of art valuation.
So Eric, I don't see a question there. Or
probably the question is, these are words of admiration, but I feel the question is in the timing. So when, or what should be done for that, or better say, it's an appeal to you to focus your marketing activity on Latin America because they have very qualified art and very sensitive artists.
Yeah. So Eric, you should just drop me an email, mc@artfacts.net, and we take a look into that. We are very interested in, especially Mexico. I think we have lots of data, but probably we are missing a lot. The Latin world is for me, as a fan of Arco, that's Spain, for me very important. So if you have information that we don't have, then please send this to me, and I try to get you, kind of incorporate it into the system and forward you to the people who can help you, that you put the stuff that is missing into our system, and then probably you will be in there quite quickly.
Thank you. We also have the last question from Evelise. Thanks for such an insightful talk. I'm not familiar with the app yet. And then the question is it allows the use of cryptocurrencies?
It would if you could buy something in there. The app is an advisor that just gives advice at the moment. And as I've said in this webinar, that we are experimenting, we're working with galleries and sending qualified leads. But what we actually do is we hand over the user to the gallery. So you can call the gallery or send them an email. What was ridiculed by some people who have a web shop, who said, why don't you do that? Why don't they end up in my checkout system? So we will probably do that with, I mentioned Koenig before, maybe also with Wang one day. He's interested. We are discussing this, that we end up in their checkout. So if somebody is interested in an artwork and can click on contact the gallery, this would be then go to the checkout, and you will then be able to purchase this, and probably also in cryptocurrency if it's on offer in the web shop. But this is out of our hands. But yes, why not? Of course, yeah. But first, we would like to have as many galleries as possible to have a web shop, and they should accept the cryptocurrency, and we would just forward you to their checkout system.
Thank you. And we also have a question from Thomas, if I pronounced it correctly. What is the actual connection between ArtFacts and Limna in terms of synergies, including data sharing? I feel like you kind of covered that already, didn't you?
Yeah, Thomas, maybe it wasn't clear. Limna and ArtFacts are actually two brands of the same company. So in the time I spoke about this briefly, that how much I not like to be the CEO. and how much I see that as the CEO we will have soon. We will soon send out a press release about our new CEO. And the former CEO, this was for me kind of gift from God. I when I was in charge or had to be in charge, I wanted both kind of to compete a little bit, to both teams to work. One works for the more academic ArtFacts approach, and the other one for the inclusion, make the artwork world bigger with the Limna approach. But I think we will change this. We will maybe bring both together. It's not clear how we will see this in future. I think both approaches are so similar that and Limna can't exist without ArtFacts, that there's might be a good case in bringing this into one in future. We don't know yet. It's too early to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marek. We have a traditional question, the last question for all of our guests regarding the tip for the young startuppers. So what is your tip as a person who has first created a great sustainable art and tech business, ArtFacts, became a known art strategist, but then took the risks to create his own startup?
Yeah. So it's art and tech, right? So here I start with tech because this is it could be anything plus tech. So for the tech founders, I would say that they should mix technologies in an unorthodox way for their solution. So, I mean, Bitcoin was made that way. ArtFacts was built that way. You use different technologies in an uncommon, unorthodox way, shake it, and come with your product. So this I would recommend as a first thing, because then you will have a differentiation and to the mainstream. And then the other thing I would say is that it's advised to be committed to a long-term vision. So when 20-something years ago, when I thought that exhibition would play a role, I didn't know that it would take that long, to be honest. And we are still not there. So I wouldn't advise to have visions that far away. But if you have, even then, to just stick to it, right? Just stick to it, and it's like a journey with obstacles, and these obstacles are always different. You're blown away, you end in a desert, whatever happens, you just stick to it. Yeah, in my career, I had been very, very poor, had been no money, nothing whatsoever, and also had a lot of money at hand, right? Had times where people were throwing money at me. It comes and goes like sunshine and clouds. Just be committed. This would be the second advice. And the third advice would be to work in teams and look out for people that complement each other. Don't do anything alone. Just work with others. I always had everything. I'm here to talk, right? But it's a joke because it has been hundreds of people who did all that, right? It wasn't me. I just maybe hold the space and that, but it's actually the work of others, right? So you're dependent on others. You're on the goodwill in terms of money, in terms of shelter, in terms of work, in terms of everything. So don't forget the others. These would be my three advices for a young startup.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. So
nice.
Yeah, I believe all the audience is now prepared for Art Basel and beyond. So with Limna and inside those 100,000 downloads, please be sure there are 7 downloads of the Fuel Arts team.
Thank you.
That was a very interesting experience. I mean, back in the fall of 2021. So please let us express you again the words of admiration regarding ArtFacts, because that's a huge work. That's a perfect tool, a very useful one. And wish you good luck with Limna and probably the next startups of yours.
Yes, and thank you for doing what you're doing these webinars and trying to bring more people, tech people and investments into the art and technology. Lots of people have burned their fingers in the last 20 years or burned their wallets. We had lots of failures. It was actually a system of failures, but I think in the end, we will prevail, and it will be for the good for the artists. And I thank you very much for doing this and putting this energy in there. Thanks for inviting me, and good luck for you too.
Thank you, Marek. So everyone, see you in a week.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.